You can look successful, capable, even put together on the outside, and still feel like you're losing a battle no one else can see. This isn't a story about failure. It's a story about what happens when nothing is ever enough, no matter how hard you try. His name was John. If you passed him on the sidewalk, there was nothing about him that would stop you. He looked fine. He spoke politely. He held a respectable job and seemed to have his life reasonably under control. Friends would describe him as doing okay, maybe even doing well. But what no one ever noticed was the constant, silent war playing out inside his head day after day. For as long as he could remember, John carried the sense that he was always falling just short. Not a total failure, just never fully sufficient. Not enough for parents who endlessly measured him against his older brother. Not enough for teachers who said he had potential but lacked consistency. Not enough for romantic partners who slowly pulled away, leaving him alone with the nagging thought that maybe there was something fundamentally wrong with him, something unfixable. And the truth is, John's story is not rare. It's painfully familiar. That dull, persistent ache of inadequacy. The sense that no matter what you do, you don't quite measure up. This feeling of never being enough is one of the most subtle yet widespread forms of human suffering. It doesn't always show itself outwardly. It hides behind laughter, behind accomplishments, behind people who appear confident and successful. But inside, it corrodes self-worth slowly, like acid eating away at metal. You recognize this feeling, don't you? That uneasy voice whispering in the background. You should be further by now. You should be smarter, stronger, more attractive, more accomplished, more confident. And no matter how much praise you receive, or how many boxes you check, that voice never fully disappears. Psychologists call this conditional self-worth, the belief that your value depends on meeting certain standards, grades, income, status, approval, appearance, performance. And when you don't meet those standards, it's not just disappointment you feel, it's a shame. You don't feel like you failed. You feel like you are a failure. John lived with this constantly. Compliments slid right past him without leaving a mark, while criticism stayed embedded like a wound. Praise felt fleeting and unreliable. Criticism felt permanent and defining. He could replay a mistake from a decade ago with perfect clarity, yet struggled to remember a recent success. And here's what makes this especially cruel. This mindset doesn't appear out of nowhere. It's shaped, almost engineered, by the world around us. From childhood onward, we are evaluated, ranked, graded, and compared. School teaches us early that our worth is tied to performance. Social media reinforces it daily, turning likes and followers into measurements of value. Consumer culture pushes the idea that who you are depends on what you own, how you look, and how well you perform. So people like John grow up carrying an invisible measuring stick, one that's always just slightly out of reach. No matter how far they go, the bar keeps moving. This isn't simply a personal weakness. It's not just insecurity. Research shows that feelings of low self-worth have surged dramatically over recent decades. Studies suggest that nearly 85% of people worldwide struggle with some degree of feeling not good enough. Think about that. Almost everyone you walk past is fighting some version of the same internal battle. Why is this so common? Part of the answer lies in evolution. Thousands of years ago, belonging to a group meant survival. Being rejected or seen as useless could be deadly. As a result, the human brain developed an intense sensitivity to comparison, rejection, and failure. That wiring still exists today, but now it's being exploited. Schools, workplaces, media platforms, and algorithms are designed to keep you questioning yourself. Doubt keeps people productive, consuming, and engaged. John didn't understand the neuroscience. He just knew that life felt like a race he could never win. He set goals, achieved them, and instead of feeling satisfied, immediately raised the bar again. He believed that if he worked harder, achieved more, pushed himself further, then he would finally feel enough. But that moment never arrived. Maybe you recognize this pattern. You tell yourself, if I lose 10 pounds, I'll finally feel confident. Then you lose the weight, and suddenly 10 more feels necessary. Or, if I get this promotion, I'll finally feel successful. Then you get it, and immediately worry about the next one. This is the treadmill effect, constant movement with no arrival. The pain of inadequacy isn't dramatic or loud. It's subtle. It appears as hesitation before speaking, as brushing off compliments, as over-apologizing, as quietly resenting other people's success because it highlights your own doubts. For John, it showed up in small moments, rewriting emails again and again out of fear of sounding foolish, staying silent in meetings despite having ideas, convinced they weren't good enough, in bed at night, scrolling through social media, comparing his messy reality to everyone else's polished highlights, feeling that familiar heaviness settle in his chest. But here's the truth John struggled to see. Feeling like you're not enough is not evidence that you're broken. It's evidence that you're human, living in a system that benefits from your self-doubt. The same forces that make you feel inadequate are often the ones selling you the solution. This isn't accidental, it's intentional. Now, this doesn't mean personal responsibility doesn't matter. Growth matters, effort matters. Wanting to improve is healthy, but there's a crucial difference between striving for self-respect and striving for self-hatred. One nourishes you, the other drains you. When good enough becomes a destination you can never reach, life turns into an endless pursuit. You're never fully present, never at rest, always chasing the next proof of worth. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with stones, each one labeled not smart enough, not attractive enough, not successful enough. Over time, no matter how strong you are, the weight becomes unbearable. John didn't realize how heavy his load was until one morning he woke up and thought, I don't even know who I am outside of this chase. And that's the most dangerous part. Chronic inadequacy doesn't just damage confidence, it erodes identity. You begin to believe that you are the flaw, that something about you is permanently lacking. But that belief, no matter how convincing it feels, isn't the truth. Neuroscience shows that the brain is remarkably flexible. The same pathways that reinforce self-criticism can be reshaped to support self-compassion. It takes time, it takes practice, but it's possible. Across cultures and history, this struggle has been recognized. Buddhist philosophy teaches that much of our suffering comes not from who we are, but from who we think we must become. Modern psychology echoes this insight. Self-worth doesn't need to be conditional. It can be intrinsic. Understanding this intellectually is one thing. Feeling it deeply is another. And that's where the real work begins. John is still on that path. And in the next part of this story, we'll explore why so many people remain trapped in cycles of inadequacy and how to begin stepping out of them. Because while this pain is common, it doesn't have to be permanent. If you've ever looked at yourself and thought, no matter what I do, it's never enough. Then you already know how heavy this burden is. The question isn't whether the pain exists, it's how we choose to respond to it. The first step is naming it. You can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. Silence keeps shame alive. When you say, "I struggle with feeling not enough," you pull the fear into the light, and it loses some of its power. The second step is perspective. This pain isn't just personal, it's cultural, systemic, a predictable response to constant comparison. When you see that, shame begins to loosen its grip. It stops being "I'm broken" and starts becoming something around me is broken. But awareness alone isn't enough. You need tools. Psychology offers several. Practicing self-compassion, speaking to yourself as you would to someone you love, has been shown to reduce anxiety and depression. Brain scans reveal that self-kindness actually changes neural activity linked to emotional regulation. Compassion isn't weakness, it's biology. Another tool is reframing, not denial, but reinterpretation. Instead of "I failed because I'm not capable," you shift to "I didn't succeed this time, but I learned something." Over time, this builds resilience instead of shame. At a deeper level lies a philosophical truth. You do not have to earn your worth. A newborn has value without achievement. That truth doesn't disappear with age. It just gets buried beneath expectations. John began to sense this. He started journaling, not about accomplishments, but about moments of presence, listening, kindness, awareness. Slowly, alongside the old voice of inadequacy, a new voice emerged, a quiet acceptance. This is the third step. Redefining how you measure worth. You stop outsourcing it. You still grow and aim higher, but not because you're desperate to prove something. You do it from curiosity, not fear. Healing isn't instant. It's gradual, like tending a garden. Some days, weeds return. Some days, growth is slow. But over time, the soil changes. If you wanted to begin today, you could start small. Write an enough list each night. Take breaks from comparison-heavy environments. Interrupt harsh self-talk with kindness. These simple acts, practiced consistently, are powerful. The pain of never being enough is part of a larger crisis of meaning. We've confused worth with performance. But imagine a world where people lived from enoughness, where learning, work, and relationships came from security, not fear. That world begins with small choices, refusing the endless race. John is still learning. He hasn't silenced the voice completely, but he's learning not to obey it. He's discovering that worth isn't found in perfection, but in presence. The real question isn't, "Am I enough yet?" but "Can I allow myself to be enough right now?" Because there will always be another standard to chase. But the moment you step out of the chase, even briefly, that's where freedom starts. Maybe the weight you've been carrying was never yours to hold. Maybe your worth was never something to earn, only something to remember. And when you remember, even for a moment, the pain softens, the race flows. Life begins to feel a little more like home, because you are not your achievements. You are not your failures. You are not the scoreboard. You are enough. You always have been.